All right, everyone, we're live.
All
Great to
right.
see everybody again. It's been a week or so. Super happy to have Yeves Perez on from Work B&B. Very excited to hear about your background with respect to being a founder and being, your history and work in the sales areas, grinding it out in the different sort of like B2C areas, and then working in marketing, and then all the way into being a founder. You've raised some capital. You've been through some accelerators. You've worked with this stuff, so tons of experience with respect to life experience, with respect to being in the sales side of things. Obviously, you've probably been through different arcs in your career where you were looking to persuade people or push people from the sales side of things. We often start that way, and now you're in a spot where you kind of get the point around what hell yes feels like. So kicking things on, Yeves, CEO of Work B&B. I'm looking forward to chat. Tell us a little about yourself, how you got in this role, why you started Work B&B, and then what's a problem you guys solve.
Yeah, so I'm going to tell you the started from the bottom story. Like really, like in my early 20s, I was looking for like my first like real big boy type job. I started with Wells Fargo on the phones, customer service, and then I had, learned my butt kicked in, phone call conversations, and I just kind of looked at it as like a sport. Like I got to get better at it. I got to lift weights and, really learn to have tough skin. So I graduated to a personal banker. And then after that, I learned to sell cars. I worked for like Honda. I even sold Saturns. Oh, talk about a hard sale. But, again, like I got my teeth kicked in, and these things, shaped me to want to, get into entrepreneurship. So I eventually graduated into marketing, advertising. I got to work as a freelancer for the first time, and work with like Chevrolet to help launch the Chevy Volt. That was a really big moment for me.
Cool.
But again, I had to do stuff where I was taking clients with like who had like no money, and I was like, well, I need my first gigs, so I'll do this for free. So, but again, I put everything I had learned into this cycle of wins, losses, how to close, how to, tell a good story. It helped win a marketing award in San Diego.
Right on.
Paid advertising campaign of the year for a chef. That was hard. That's hard, trying to sell a person. And then my mom called one day and she said, hey, my little Airbnb business just got a contract. There's a company that's relocating to Reno and they can't find housing and they want to pay me to set it up. So I bought you a plane ticket and you need to get your ass here and come help me set up these rentals. And I was like, Mom, like I got a whole career. Like, what are you talking about?
Yeah.
But I figured if I'm going to get invited to Thanksgiving ever again, I might as well get on this plane and go help my mom. And that's what I did. I helped her with set this up. But she asked me this marketing question. And I'll never forget this because I thought I was only going to be there for 3 weeks. She said, what could I do to get more clients like this? And I said, well, let me look into some data and let me, because that's what I learned. And I was like, let me see what are some buying patterns, what are some signals, what are some things to consider, and one of the things that I found out is that these particular customers that she wants, and we'll talk about this later, ideal customer profiles, they are looking for workforce housing, but you call your properties vacation rentals. It doesn't really match up. So we're going to have to change that vernacular. And that's what we did. We changed the wording that she was using from vacation rentals, and we coined a term called workforce rentals.
Yeah.
And within like 6-8 months, her revenue grew by 300%. We had companies calling like all over the place, because they were discovering her. Yeah. And it was at such a rate, such a clip, and there was no competitor using that term, that we had scaled her business from like a handful of Airbnb rentals to 45 within 8 months. So So we became the largest rental operation in Northern Nevada, a son and mother team.
Mm-hmm.
And that's where I started to feel like there was a hunch that I could follow, that this is an underserved niche, blue collar workers traveling, people traveling for work, finding the right housing. And, that's a really important to again, land where you want to go for your vision.
Yeah.
So this was a challenge that I really had to dive into, but that's how we got here. That's the story.
So the problem you solved for your mom, and then you found the market. It's a great story. Is that there's a market out there, people they're searching for workforce housing, be it temporary or extended stay, right? Because that market kind of exists.
It exists, but like anything, and this is important for sales.
Mm-hmm.
Like anything, there are incumbents that get comfortable. They don't want to invest or reinvest. They don't want to. Yeah. They don't want to evolve. They like the way things are. I actually have this saying that I use with my entire team. The 7 most expensive words in business are, "We have always done it this way."
Yeah.
And when, as a salesperson, you see somebody in that rut, that pattern, you're like, oh, well, I have something better, value prop. And I just need to know how to word it correctly and get that persuasive message out that will target this. And that's what was going on in corporate housing. Corporate housing was an old model that only had apartment homes.
Yeah.
So, but if you're moving, if you're used to living in a 4-bedroom house, a 2-bedroom apartment isn't nice. I'd like at least a 3-bedroom house if you could.
Yeah. Or something with similar square footage. So, and the thing that isn't available is actually very limited executive stay or extended stay suites out there.
Right.
Because they typically require a whole month to book it, and they're built for that kind of arrangement, that kind of setup. And so the problem is that there's limited, there's supply, there's demand for it, but it's kind of like mismatched.
Yeah.
And so then when you find your hell buyer, like the hell yes buyer, like when you're doing a marketplace, so tell us a little bit about WorkBnB, and we'll kind of dig in just to frame the context of the rest of the conversation.
Okay. Now I have to really apologize. Just give me like 10 seconds. Sorry, everybody who's watching. I left my charger on my desk, and I
go for it.
A low mode. Hold on, I'm sorry about that.
Yeah, no worries.
Kind of rude of me. Just for the story, I went to a meeting yesterday with the Oakland A's. They're relocating their stadium. So talk about sales. Like, that's one of the ways that I get, is, everybody wants to do everything online these days, but sometimes you got to get your butt up and get out and meet people. Work a relationship from the very beginning of something. It may take a couple of years to get there. That's what I was talking about on my LinkedIn yesterday. We planned on 2 years at this meeting for the Oakland A's new baseball project, and to really follow through and go and shake hands and remind people, hey, I'm here, I'm part of this. I really want this sale.
Well, think about, not just like Oakland A's, but like in Vegas, you've got F1, you've got, there's annual events, in LA, there's Olympics coming up in 3.5 years. Right?
We even have a high-speed rail project being built from Vegas to LA. It's like a 6-year construction project. So, but let me answer your question. How did WorkBnB come about? So one of the things that really makes a really good salesman is asking questions, but you have to be quiet enough to let people talk for those questions to come about. And as I was working with my mom, sorry, my iPad gets a little excited when I talk with my hands.
All right.
it's an Apple thing.
All right. Yeah, got you.
Uh, so anyway, you know, we were at the time that I was helping my mom, we were starting to see a shift, what we know as market forces with COVID. I was
Yeah.
seeing it on the news early, and I said, Mom, if COVID comes to the United States, it's probably going to wreak a lot of havoc, you know? And at that time, there were those early cases in like Seattle and other places. And I was
Yep.
just like, okay,
West Coast
we need to pay attention to this because we may need to pivot. We may need to adapt. So as it did happen and the states were shutting down, the governors would say, the only people who can travel are essential workers. They kept using that term.
Mm-hmm.
And I was like, hey, we need to click onto that term. Like, how do we, use that in some of our blog posts or some of our things? And it worked. Our rental stayed, full throughout COVID, whereas vacation rentals were completely shut down.
Mm-hmm.
They had no revenue coming in.
Yeah.
So one of the clients that came through was a construction company doing a spaghetti bowl expansion. So those are like interchanges. Mm-hmm. And they needed a 2-bedroom condo for their site supervisor. And it blew my mind. I mean, I'll never forget this. They said, our budget's $200 a night. And I was like, okay, I can get $175 a night. 200 is great. I said, how long you need it for? They said 2.5 years. And I had just never heard of that much money. Like, that's $180,000. And I was like, what? Yeah, let's go. Like, I'm signing the paperwork. But as I'm listening to what he's saying, he said, we don't have an online app that we can use. And I said, let me get this. What is that called? Where you repeat what they say?
Loop back.
Yeah. It's like, let me get this straight. You're saying that there's no online product that you can use to find housing? He said, no, there's nothing that exists. We have to try like 20 different things. We're wasting a lot of time trying to figure it out. He said, in one case, it got so bad that the apartment complex that I was trying to house people in, they wanted the workers to be on the lease, and they couldn't credit qualify. They just couldn't.
Yeah. I think we just need to pause for 1 second, because like Airbnb is a person to person transaction,
right? Mm-hmm.
And I think if you think about, if you've been in workforce rentals, and I've done a little bit of myself, I've been one, I've helped people get it. You're at that moment, you're talking about credit worthiness, right? The person, the assignment of the payable in Airbnb is a person, and that's why it's your personal credit rating, your personal credit, your Airbnb history is all works.
Yes.
In workforce housing, the person who's assigned the payable is a company,
right?
And that company is doing the rental, and the company may even rent it for like 2 years and interchange the guests.
Right.
Which difference, and so, and why Airbnb won't work. I'm just going to guess. I'm guessing here. Airbnb won't work for commercial housing because each individual person has to go and do the rental, whereas a company wants to have assignment of that liability. Yeah. To them directly, and just like their people, they don't want that. They're already being displaced. They don't want this headache.
Right.
And so I get why it doesn't work now. And I just want to say that out loud for people that were saying, well, why wouldn't you just use Airbnb or VRBO or whatever?
Well, I'll work that way. Even better that it doesn't work again, because this is what discovery is all about.
Yeah.
Is, you ask more questions. You don't just stop asking questions. You want to can we talk a little bit more deeper?
Yeah.
What's another reason why this doesn't work? Is there another? And what we've discovered was that in the Airbnb model, they allow their hosts to have an open calendar and take advance bookings on holidays. Okay. So you could book 4th of July, you could book New Year's Eve. Well, the thing is, in construction, projects don't end on time. Sometimes they need to extend. So they'll try to rent on Airbnb, and then this host has a booking, let's say 4th of July, and
Yeah.
they're like, well, I need it for another 6 months. And the host is like, oh, well, I don't want to get in trouble with Airbnb. Can you leave, go somewhere else, and then come back? And it's like, well, why would I do that? So
I totally get the gap. I totally get the gap in the market.
it was just too much for them to rely on. And that's where I said, I would be willing to start a tech company to help you.
Yep.
But I won't do it by myself. I need you to agree to be the first client. And our first client is Ames Construction, the 74th largest industrial GC in the United States. Their project executive for the entire state of Nevada said, I will go down this journey with you. And that's how we birthed WorkBnB.
Outstanding. So what's interesting for everyone to understand here is that the problem you solve is for a specific group, right? It's for people who are seeking for workforce housing. And temporary, extended, all those things. The why that problem exists is because the other alternatives that are out there are designed largely for person-to-person transactions.
And also a different customer profile.
Oh, completely. Duration. They actually want a different contract.
They have a pattern that they like. And it's even reflected in their pricing. They price their service fee 10%, sometimes 14 to 20 something percent. But again, that's based on short term vacation travel, white collar, business travel, going to a convention tour, to a business meeting. That's 5 days, So yeah, I'm going to charge you 10%. But if I'm going to charge you 10% for 9 months, you're paying, 3 weeks worth of rent just because they found you something. So again, that's another way to win.
Do you find that when you're taking a look at the market, so now you've got to sell, for everyone to understand, marketplace businesses are unique from just conventional businesses because you've got to sell two sides of the market.
Two sides,
So you got to get supply and then you got to get demand. And it's a balance of how you do it. So how are you approaching acquiring supply and then acquiring demand in a world where the problem you solve is duration, right? And contract,
right?
Because like you're asking someone, if I've got a place to rent, let's say I've got a 2-bedroom like you described, and that 2-bedroom is vacant, and then I'm going to put that on WorkBnB, and there's a I don't know if I'm going to get revenue, and maybe even have to give up revenue that we booked for July the 4th. So then how do you bring them in? How do you lever up the demand and the supply in a market so that you can you can broker that transaction?
So I love this question. This is probably one of my favorite questions to ask, actually. You have to decide how hard you want this to be first. So what I mean by that is, do you want to only focus on one side and hope the other side happens? Or do you do both at the same time? And I chose both at the same time. And the way that we did that was we focused on storytelling and building community first before we built a product. So this is probably one of the scrappiest things you'll ever hear. Before we got a domain, before we did any of that, like what we did was we started a Facebook group, and we called it the WorkBnB App Coalition. That's free. And I went around Facebook and Facebook groups trying to talk to real estate people. And I'm just, hey, do you want to join my group? Do you want to talk about housing traveling workers? Do you want to have a discussion about this? We're thinking about building this business and
talk about the problem.
Yes.
Curate the problem.
I want to know your problems. I want to know your problems. And then we used Facebook and Instagram specifically to do storytelling about their problems. And then we did something similar with LinkedIn, where again, I was getting, construction people together and I was having client discovery calls with them,
Mm-hmm.
Zoom calls, mostly. I wanted them to see my face and I wanted them to get to know me and build a relationship with me. But we would ask them very important questions. And one of the most important questions you can ask somebody to help you gauge a sale is the priority question. Okay. And it goes like this: on a scale of 1 to 10, 1 being the lowest, 10 being the highest. If I can solve X problem with X idea solution, what's the likelihood or the priority that you're going to want to use this? Is it low? Is it medium? Is it high? If they say 7 or above, you got a killer sale. Just
Mm-hmm.
bam,
That's your hell
bam,
yes.
bam. Hell yes. It's a 9. I hate this problem. Like it's
Mm-hmm.
kill. Like it's kill. Please tell me more. Like, is it time you're losing? Is it money? What's going on? And the more that you get into it, then you get to ask, like, tell me a story about the pain.
I
And
love it.
we would hear stories about like guys
I
staying
love
in
it.
motels and they would get their trucks broken into in the middle of the night because these motels are in unsecured parking lots. They have unsecured parking lots and they've got $80,000 worth of tools out in the truck. So what we would do is we would take those stories and then I would craft content around that story. Are you tired of tool theft? Are you tired of this inconsistency in housing? So what I'm doing is it's almost like getting the bath water the right temperature. I'm literally twisting the knobs to get the right hot water, cold water between the two,
Yeah.
properties and demand to get to now. Fast forward, I can get them to talk in a room. That's another thing we did. We put on a live event where we brought construction people and we brought real estate people together in a room here in Las Vegas. We had 80 people show up. And people loved it so much, they actually asked to invest in us. They wanted to angel invest. And that's
Wow.
where I was like, okay, not are we getting to a hell yes, but now I want to take a ride with you. I want to be a
Mm-hmm.
part of this company.
Outstanding. Really, no, I love the story. I mean, for starters, I think that what I haven't heard before from a lot of the people is digging in on the tell me your story, right?
Right.
And there's something about the human brain that when you say something out loud, you double imprint it, right? You double print, you say it out loud, meaning you formulated the thoughts in terms of how you're going to convey your position. And then when you say it out loud, you hear it and it gets double printed. And
Right.
when I can tell you that there's a pain, but if you say it out loud, now the exact same words, now it's your problem, not
Right.
what I tell you your problem is.
Right.
You need to lose weight or I need to lose weight are two totally different mentalities.
Mm-hmm.
And when you own that conversation, you're owning the priority around it.
Right.
And I love how you
Right.
also talked about how, and for everyone listening, like, you talked about how you asked the priority question, which is also can be framed in terms of like, how are you blocked, right? If
Mm-hmm.
you don't find this solution to workforce housing, what other alternatives are out there?
Right.
Well,
what are the alternatives? Yes.
And the alternatives are the narratives that you captured in the Facebook groups.
Right.
You could even, those are your clips, right? This is what people are telling us they're trying to do, and this is what happened. And then people can go, oh yeah, that happened to me too. Mm-hmm. And then now you're sharing stories, and you've gone from this we're strangers to now you're in the inner circle, and now you've hit trust.
Right.
Dude, this is brilliant stuff.
Thank you.
and not a lot of folks have talked about this, right?
Well,
and I just want to give you credit for that, like for doing that bringing that pool of people together to have a collaborative bitch session.
Right. Well, that's the thing. Now, today, it's evolved. That's what you should always evolve this thing. And this was part of our strategy. We decided this strategy years ago, and we let it cook over time. Like
Yeah.
we're in year 4 now. And, you know, for startups, like that's like a miracle. Like it's almost
Mhm.
like mathematically, like the longer you're in business, mathematically, the chances of your success go up.
Yeah.
So with the math working in our favor, we use that momentum to now just, you know, go after it even harder, because now we know what keywords, we know what sentiment, we
Yeah.
know how to dial it in, we know how to. So, you know, we use all the tools. Like on LinkedIn, for example, I posted a poll based on that, these kind of like conversations, like,
Yeah.
you know, when it comes to this alternative, how much does it suck, you know? And I gave, you know, different poll answers, and people were, you know, responding to it. But again, people were showing sentiment, workers saying, one of the poll questions was, if that's the option, this is the option, I would rather not take the job. And when
Yeah.
employers hear that, they're like, this brand, Work B&B, is not afraid to just lay it all out there
Yeah.
for, you know, everybody
Well,
to see.
and then that's and you're connecting it to real people, right?
Right.
So you did a great job. So let's just kind of recap, because we're I think we're coming up on a third of the way in, or halfway in. But like we talked about the problem, right?
Yeah.
We need people need to move around and do work, and you do work because that creates revenue. If you can't move the people, you can't collect the revenue. So
Right.
your revenue is blocked. The alternatives that are out there are fairly limited to, well, from workforce housing, you've got kind of your legacy workforce housing arrangement, which might be urban, right? Which also might be a problem given your workspace, versus like distributed, like scattered site, work B&B. And if you wanted to buy a personal person transaction, now the worker is on the hook versus the company. So that doesn't work any longer for the problem they're trying to solve, right? And then you went and curated the audience to create a collective bitch session. People laid in and they told you what they don't like about the current alternatives that are available, and shared personal narratives. You collected those, created that into content, and then you went and do polling of the audience to kind of like continuously pick at the nerve, right? Or punch that Charlie horse, so that that pain becomes amplified with the audience you're growing, right? And so you've done all this great work. You've kind of like done all the stuff that a lot of people forget to do. How do you get to hell yes?
So, wow, I was so excited about that. You asked for the sale, like really, like,
Yep. All
you
right.
know, based. I mean,
Do you ever
again,
ask them what? Do you ever
when
ask
the
them?
priority's high, you know, the main thing is to just, again, give them something to say yes to.
Yeah.
And for us, it was how we branded our yes. Okay.
Sure.
Our
Sure.
yes is, are you ready to join the movement?
All right.
And again, when they see it like that, they see it as like a movement. I'm part of like something that is shifting, that's needed to shift for a very long time. Incumbents had their way, and they just kept taking advantage of us. They never really upgraded their properties for us. They never took our suggestions. They, again, like, how do you get people to say yes to anything? You got to give them something that they feel something when they say yes.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
And when they say it, they're like, yes, it's enthusiastic.
Yeah.
So
Do you?
again, I'm like, are you ready to join the movement? Let's go. Let's sign you up. Let's get you
And they're
going.
like, yeah, they're jumping up and down.
Yes,
They're doing
they're
the
like,
Toyota
yes,
jump.
yes, yes, yes. And here's the thing. You can raise money when you can agree to have a client on a Zoom call saying yes.
Oh yeah.
Because now investors are like, you're not just telling me that people are saying yes, you're actually giving me evidence that there's enthusiasm, there's real emotions to this. There's real like sense of urgency for this, and that's how you really, again, get this thing really off and going.
Do you so you're out there and not everyone, sorry, dog bark.
That's okay.
Not everyone buys in. How do you get people? What are the objections to it?
Other objections. Ooh, I mean, here's the thing. Sometimes, and I've learned this, sometimes when people are looking at the actual individual properties, sometimes they'll make like a snap judgment on something like, this is too nice for my workers. I want something a little bit more average or whatever. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
We'll work. We'll find you something. But ultimately, sometimes objections, and this is very becoming more common in B2B, where I don't know why micromanaging kind of came back. Where it's like higher ups want to be part of decisions, and now multiple people have different opinions about things. So sometimes that makes the sale a little bit longer. But ultimately, again, like whatever the objections are, the joy in what you're selling really helps carry through any objection. Because again, if you really, love this thing, you really have like a passion for this thing. Maybe you admire the people that made it. Maybe there's, again, there's some craftsmanship involved. Maybe there's a story, whatever that is that got you like excited to get out of bed and really like, pound the pavement, sort of say, right? It's kind of like, yep, whatever that is will always need to be strong enough to, handle anything. But again, in our business, we've been building up brand equity. I don't know if people talk about that on your show, but brand equity is a sense of purpose, mission, vision. It's all clear. Emotions are involved, but also a brand archetype. And when you have these things already kind of really decided, I have learned that price is not one of those objections, because they find so much value in that short little value prop statement, whatever that is, that people are like, I'll pay that. And I love that, because I feel bad for.
So then who's the buyer? Who's the buyer specifically when you're doing your filter for targeting? Who's the one that's typing in Google?
Yeah, so great question. So some companies have what's called a travel manager. So the company has grown so much and people travel so much, they decided to
it's a job
manager. So, but if they don't, it's just a front office manager. It's like the lady that just like does all the weird little tasks. And she hates this job. He or she hates this job because they have like a million other tasks to do, and they don't want to spend 2 weeks finding housing for a bunch of employees. So, because it's never one, it's always like a team.
Yeah. I've seen it. I've lived it, especially in field ops. I've lived it 100 times. I know exactly what you're talking about.
Yeah. So,
relocations as well, like reloads.
Right. So it's already an approved line item that they don't need to go to the CFO. They don't need to go to VP of operations. It doesn't even need to go any higher than just, again, that office manager. Sometimes an HR generalist will be tasked if the office manager is too busy to deal with it.
And that's also another good point for me to listen to, is that you are creating a different way of buying something that's already budgeted for.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
Yep.
And that's like, something that's not budgeted for, and it's very close to how they buy it today. Like, it's one thing to replace people with technology because they're kind of used to buying people, but they're used to buying a solution, a service,
Right.
and they just buy it a different way. And now you're offering a different way of buying that service that is better, more comfortable, etc. And you've got everything kind of like aligned with why that's a better experience for the worker, which has also all the other benefits too. So
Right.
do you ever get pressed on, and the pricing doesn't matter because the budget's already there. I'm just trying to think through what other things are gas, but like,
well, I can tell you one, payments is a gap because
okay.
see, the thing is, like, when you look at like the Airbnb model, you have to pay up front.
Right.
Whereas with like hotels, you could call in, get a big group discount. You could set up a net 30, all those type of things. So again, how do you get like payments to work in this new space? So, again, for us, we rely on technology. One of our big differences is speed to value. Especially with a technology product, when you can get the value quickly in like just like a brush stroke, it's like seconds. Like, that's impressive. So I'll walk you through that really quickly. When a travel manager or an office manager come to any booking product online, it could be, booking.com, and it doesn't matter. They have to search city, state, check in, check out, how many people, right? Now, if you're trying to book for like 30 people, you have to do that like 30 times.
Yeah.
You have to do one at a time, one transaction at a time, one thing. Or you have to call this office manager, this manager, and you have to set meetings with a regional and this and that. So again, the process is long. So the way that we do it is we say, give us the details about the project. Our AI agent actually pulls up all the public record data on it. And then what we do is we have our matching algorithm matches your needs, let's say 30 people. It'll match the nearest properties to that project. And it will show you the exact number that you need to fill that order. Sure. So that you're not looking through 2,000 search results. So again, like, speed to value is like, wait a minute. Okay, now not only did you give me what I wanted, but you're not giving me like too many options where I'm trying to figure out how far away they are to the project.
Well, and especially these things. Like, if I were to consider it just like compared to the Airbnb experience, like Airbnb doesn't give you the precise location of the unit until you I think it does it until you buy. I can't remember. Right. But it's kind of like generic. It's like near. I can't remember exactly how it.
Yeah, but again, that's for a vacation customer profile. Like, like we don't want you going down there and taking pictures of it, or whatever. But again, it's one of those things where, again, when you really have a real deep relationship with your ideal customer profile, you've spent real good time talking about these things, you think about an end-to-end experience. So that's where we got payments, right? And we started to, again, think about like the payments structures that they need. And that, again, adds to a hell yes. They're like, I'm so glad I said yes. This is incredible.
Okay. So you've got, I think we've got it like you've shared, like, you've got hell yes on the demand side.
Yeah.
So let's talk about supply.
Right.
How are you getting hell yes on the supply side? Because you got to sell to people.
So there's something, just called like timing that makes all this magic. And that's where you have to really figure out, am I too early or am I too late with this? Like, that really should be a big part of your decision in what you're doing with these type of things. And our research, we were seeing regulations being passed around large cities where they want to limit Airbnb activity, short-term rental activity.
Yep.
And they pass these laws that make it illegal if you don't comply. And when
and there's
you're
different
illegal,
tax ratios, and there's different permits, all that stuff. It makes it really
right,
hard.
and there's fines.
Mhm.
And we were like, okay, well, what are the stipulations around that? And the stipulations are, and this is almost uniform in every city that's doing it, is that they define a short-term stay as anything less than 30 days on average. And if it's more than 30 days, then you can legally operate above those regulations.
Yep.
And again, customer profile, the average workforce traveler is traveling 6 to 9 months or longer. So again, it's the right customer profile for the right problem of that supplier.
Yeah.
And it's like, hell yes. Wait a minute.
Because they can't put their stuff on Airbnb because of the rules and all this stuff.
I'm going to get fined.
Yeah.
So that's why we got a lot of inventory right away.
I love it. Just inconsistencies in the market, right? And because of the duration of the stay, I mean, it's not as disruptive to existing residents if it's a multifamily or if it's a garden style or whatever, right?
Right.
Because they're not in and out. They're not throwing parties. They're not having stags.
Yeah, but guess where we learned all that? From the Facebook group, like I told you, right? Like we got to talk to people early and say, lay it all out.
So how'd you get people to come to the Facebook group?
You know, that was just me just like going around on Facebook, looking at posts that people were posting about that were experiencing pain. I was just remembering like certain words that were arranged a certain way. Maybe it might be 2 or 3 words. And I would just quote those, put that in the Facebook search, see what came up, what posts came up. And I went to other Facebook groups and, you know, again, look for these terms. And, you know, then I friended these people and said, hey, do you want to join a group to talk about this? But let me tell you about the confidence it gives you when you do this type of stuff. Okay. Again, if you can like make this a hell yes quickly, you're going to do great. So one of the things I say is like, you know, yeah, we help you bypass regulations, but also guess what? Workers aren't there to party. They're there just to work.
No.
When I say that with confidence, I'm like this. I'm like, so guess what else? Right? Because I learned that that's another problem with the short-term rental space. People come to trash their rentals and they hate it. So when they can find an ideal customer profile that loves and respects the property, that's like another like add-on to just say yes, like yes, sign me up. How many, like, can I sign up 10 properties? Can I sign up 20? Like, what do I have to do?
Yeah, that's outstanding. I love it. So, okay, you're at this awesome spot. In retrospect, it sounds awesome. It's never a straight line.
Right.
Tell me a few of the things you messed up along the way.
Man, so messing up is a part of the process. I messed up early. I had an incident where I was selling a car and my sales manager was pressuring me to talk about this vehicle as if it was like an off-road type vehicle. And I knew it wasn't an off-road vehicle. And they really, again, pushed me to, they put like a camper tent on the back in the showroom, made it look like it was a campfire. And I was just like, okay, I'll try. And I took this thing on a test drive, and this guy knew a little trail just to see how it would do on a trail. And it was spinning out on the trail. Like it was. And I was so embarrassed that I was just like, look, I'm going to learn to just not, again, bend this, like my will to something. I'm just going to really focus on, value prop as it is determined and really stick with that. And again, bring energy to that. So I learned how to bring energy. I learned how to articulate things. But then fast forward in this business, I've also learned that one of the ways that you can mess up is by, and these are all like really common mess ups. If you drop the ball on communication, you don't, again, have a good follow up or a follow through
Mhm.
or a reminder to tap in with somebody. Sometimes, you know, a relationship can get kind of cold and it can lose momentum. And losing momentum in sales is just really tough to get back. It's super tough. You actually need people talking about you a lot to get that back. It's something that you can't just will it back. So I learned these types of things, but I've also dealt with like anger issues in my life in the past, where it's
Mhm.
just like I would get upset by sales and the sales process. And one time I was on a call where we made a mistake and we're apologizing for it and building up the relationship back. But again, I was angry that it was such a big deal because of the value that we brought. So when the call was over, I thought that we hung up the call and I'm
Mhm.
just going off talking shit.
Oh
And they were
no.
listening.
Oh no.
They heard the whole thing and sent me a text back like, hey, we heard the whole thing, you know, like we understand it's frustrating for us too, no hard feelings, but I just want you to know you should hang up your phone before you had to call. And I really
Yeah.
was embarrassed by that. I was like, oh my God. But here's the thing. It made me want to get better at these weaknesses. So I've learned now a lot of patience. I'm in my 40s and I have a lot of young people that come to me and ask for advice. And I say, you're trying to be a rock star too early. Like you need to
Yeah.
get your bumps and bruises. You need to take some licks. So, you know, um, you know, don't worry about a no or this isn't working
No.
or a mistake. Like you have to get your stripes in this thing.
Well, I often encourage folks to actually go get the no's. Go get 100 no's. Your
Right.
goal should be to get your goal should be to get no's.
Right.
And and if you can't learn from going to get no's, then this isn't going to work out in the long run.
Right. Now,
So
I
count
will
your
add
no's.
I will add some wisdom to this. This is something that I've learned with work B&B. So let's say again, you're following this advice. You're gonna go, and I'm like, all right, 100 no's.
Mhm.
But let's say you get like 40 yeses, and you're like, whoa, like
Let's
what's going
rock.
on? Like this
Yeah,
is
yeah.
great, right? Slow down, okay? Because you need to understand there's something called the adoption curve. Okay.
Mhm.
There are some early adopters that say yes to a lot of things
Yes.
because their buyer profile is a very unique buyer, which means I like to buy things or do things before my other social group or work
Yep.
group does. It's something in me. I buy the new TV when it comes out. I listen to this music and it's like, oh, I could, yeah, I have some new recommendations on music. I've been listening to this artist nobody's ever heard of. That person exists. So if you think that 40 yeses mean that you're going to get 400 yeses, you could be wrong. These other people in the adoption curve sometimes have different buyer motivations or buying patterns
Yeah.
that they are a little bit more cautious. I remember when the iPhone came out, I didn't get the first one, I got the third one.
Yeah.
So again, like I would rather wait. My profile personally is I'd rather wait till people say it works right and it's as cool as it sounds, then I'll buy.
Yeah, we've felt a similar thing, and I guess if you're getting 40 of them, then you're onto something. I think
You're
if
onto
you're getting the
something.
if you're getting the one, the twos, and the threes, then you've kind of got you may be getting misdirected. You may be getting some
Right.
bad data.
Right. But
Um,
but but again, if you're getting 40, just just be comfortable enough with yourself and confident in yourself to say, okay, I don't want to presume that I know it all yet. Like I
Yeah. I
really
mean,
need more of a larger sample to say that this is definitely something that will scale.
like you look at the bowling pin theory from Jeffrey Moore, right? If you get
Right.
40 look exactly the same
Right.
for the same problem, like I agree with you. Like be cautious, be skeptical. Like I think one thing that is as founders and entrepreneurs we have to be skeptical of our own product.
Right.
It's very hard to do.
Yeah.
And so you get 40 yeses. You want to be skeptical about that because then you're going to challenge yourself to find the commonalities and find the differences and understand that those commonalities are aligned with why they're buying, right? Good intel. So kind of wrapping this up. So people that are out there looking, what's the one piece of advice you give other sellers to recognize when they're looking for hell yes?
Repeat the question one more time. I just want to make sure I got that.
Or people that you talk to other people that are asking, looking for mentorship or people that you would hire. What's the one piece of advice you'd give them for other sellers that are looking to get to buyers in hell yes?
So understanding again, like what's the brand archetype? Like for WorkBnB, it's an outlier brand. And that falls under like something called an outlaw. So it's like it's rebellious. It's it's so think like Harley Davidson or think like Milwaukee Tools. It's unapologetic, it's authentic, it leans into that. Decide whatever that is so you can lean into that. There are brands that lean into the ruler archetype where it's like, okay, I'm going to wear really nice suits and I'm going to give that Rolex feel. Like that's what I'm going to lean into. Decide that, lean into that, give it 6 to 8 months of testing, and then as that is, working for you, then lean into it. If you look at a bunch of my interviews, I'm wearing sunglasses. I have a very cool, vibe to WorkBnB where it's like I'll wear them in meetings, I'll wear them on a pitch stage, I'll wear them in interviews because it's part of our persona that we are leaning into, and we like being a cool brand in construction. There's not a lot of cool brands.
I got it. Okay,
so
cool.
It's like
so know your brand, lean in it, love it, own it, kind of like live it. Who should we talk to next?
Wow, that was actually one of the toughest questions for me.
All right.
So I have a couple of friends from Techstars. That again, like we really have really great relationships with, and the ones that come to mind are definitely in travel, prop tech. So there's this one in travel. His name is Darian, and he has like this group travel platform that is just like super cool. But again, like he leans into his brand, and he really leans into like him at just being so comfortable. And the name of the company is called Squad Trip, but it's super like approachable, removes a lot of barrier to entry, doesn't, make it, like you get it like really fast.
So what's his name?
So Darian. I'm trying to remember his last name. I was just glitching, but
well, Darian from Squad Travel.
Darian Watson.
All right, we'll reach out, Darian.
And
how can folks get a hold of you?
So I prefer people to catch me on LinkedIn. Like I love it. Like now. All right. You can follow WorkBnB CEO on Instagram, but I will tell you this: on Instagram, I'm not trying to be a creator. I don't care about likes. I use it almost as like a mini documentary. Like I'm documenting steps of building this business. So, whether you relate to that or not, I honestly, like, I really don't care about likes. But on LinkedIn, I love to engage. I love
Yeah.
to have conversation in the comments. So even in this, like, I encourage people, if you have a question, put it in the comments, because, I would love to respond and help anybody I can.
Perfect. Okay. Thank you so much. This has been a great tell. I love the fact that you have people telling the stories about their problems and pains. Everyone listening, you can find us on Apple, Spotify for your podcast. This is live right now. It'll be on LinkedIn. We'll kind of pump that up as we go along. There'll be clips as we go through. Yeves, thank you so much for reaching out and touching and just connecting through U.S. PropTech Council and Amy. And once again, thank you so much for sharing all your insights. This is super valuable. Appreciate the lens from soup to nuts, marketing right through to close, and especially for a two-sided marketplace.
Yeah,
Outstanding.
thank you.
Thank you very much. Congratulations.